Alright. First, I want you to imagine a prime Mike Tyson standing directly behind you. Better yet, I want you to picture him right after he bit that one guy's ear off. This is the aftermath of that, and as you can see, there's 5 police officers, and they're armed, by the way. And there's one Mike Tyson, and yet they seem to be the ones backing away from him. And that's because Mike Tyson is the living embodiment of intimidation. No one in the 80s and 90s was more frightening than a prime Mike Tyson. 50 wins, 44 by knockout. He's going to go down as one of, if not the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. And yet, it would probably surprise you to know that Mike Tyson would weep. He would cry in fear before every single one of his matches. And here's a quick video clip explaining why.
As soon as I come to Uncle Pearson against the tight leather gloves on the everlast boxing glove, when I come out, I have supreme confidence. I'm scared to death. I'm totally afraid. I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of being humiliated. But I'm totally confident. The closer I get to the ring, the more confidence I get. The closer, the more confidence I get. The closer, the more confidence I get. All during my training, I've been afraid of this man. I thought this man might be capable of beating me. I've dreamed of him beating me. But I always stayed afraid of him. But the closer I get to the ring, I'm more confident. Once I'm in the ring, I'm a god. No one can beat me.
So, as you can see there, he had this expression, once I'm in the ring, I'm a god. As he was walking up to the stage, he was afraid his opponent might beat him. The whole ordeal of fighting itself was frightening to him. But in a sense, he was able to weaponize this fear because he became so dominant despite the fact that he was constantly afraid. And this is a phenomenon that occurs once someone is able to cross the fear threshold. Now, when someone's able to cross the fear threshold, they get into this godlike state, this flow-like state, in which they're able to achieve things that previously they didn't think they'd be able to. Fear is one of, if not the most important tool in the human brain. It was able to deter us from dangerous predators or dangerous situations, hence why, until today, people are still afraid of heights. It's an evolutionary trait. And for all these years, hundreds of years that humans have been evolving, fear has been something that kept us away from things that could potentially knock us out of the evolutionary game. However, the context in which our bodies chooses to activate fear has changed greatly. Because it's not often that we find ourselves fighting lions or scouring in dark caves. Fears today are different, and yet they still act as deterrents. Now, the National Institute for Mental Health in America conducted an experiment, and they found a common fear among 75% of people: public speaking. And number 3 on that list was artichophobia, which is the fear of not living up to one's expectations or being a failure. So today's modern fears include public speaking and artichophobia, the fear of being a failure. Whereas hundreds of years ago it would have been hunting or mountains. So clearly there's a discrepancy here. In the past it was useful to use fear as a deterrent because those things could have actually killed us. But now the only things we're deterring are stuff we should be aiming to be better at. What's important is that we use our fears in a more Mike Tyson fashion. Something that is a hurdle, an obstacle to cross, not necessarily something that we should be deterred from. Once we're able to cross this fear threshold, we'll be able to enter this godlike state that Mike Tyson talked about. Now, believe it or not, all of us have used this fear threshold to our advantage before. I'm sure we've all taken the SAT, ACT, AP, some sort of stressful exam that we've studied a lot for, we were afraid of. I'm sure we had a unit that maybe we were uncomfortable with, and the closer and closer the deadline got, the more closer like Mike Tyson got to the ring, our fears kind of start to, we might spiral down and think about the worst situation possible, when the opponent slip fail. But when you're actually in the room and you have the test in front of you, it feels, there's a sense of epiphany there. Like stuff that didn't make sense before starts to make sense now. You go through it, even those units that weren't so clear before end up clearing up. And that's because you're getting closer and closer to crossing the fear threshold, and it's possible you end up with a better score than you did on your practice. That's something that happened to me. And if you're saying that's never happened to you, then it's possible that you were never able to take advantage of this evolutionary trait of fear, because there's a condition. In order for you to cross this threshold, you need to be absolutely afraid and dive in? Absolutely. Maybe you took the test, but maybe you mentally opted out of the test. You reasoned to yourself that my grades don't matter, or I'll go test optional anyways. And if that happens, you can't use this to your full advantage because you aren't actually facing your fear, you're deterring it. No one understands this principle better than the military. That's why they have staff sergeants yelling in your face and they make you go through boot camp for 8 weeks. And you might think it's to desensitize a soldier or to get them battle hardened, but they do this to the people who are going to go and stock books on a library shelf, or people who are going to be electricians or cooks in the military. This happens to everyone in the military. And it's a simple thought process. It's to get you okay with being uncomfortable, comfortable with being afraid. And once they do that, they're able to make someone cross this fear threshold and become 10 times more productive than they were previously. The military is one of the few places where you can see a 18-year-old with little ambitions go in and come out a man with goals. And that's because this exponential growth can only be seen once someone crosses the fear threshold. Now, if we've reached this point, it's natural for you to be a little bit skeptical, because I'm not a psychologist. I technically don't even have my high school diploma yet, and a lot of this is largely theoretical. I did some research to see if I could find maybe some studies on this, but no. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. This is an extremely embarrassing photo of me. And it's censored, not because it's explicit, but because it's embarrassing, and I don't want you to see. But when I had this picture, then I realized I was at a very big advantage, that I had something that I could use for myself. You see, this picture perfectly embodies my greatest fears. For some context, this was taken on a trip to Miami over the spring break with 2 of my friends. We rented an Airbnb, it was a great time. But I was on a boardwalk in Miami, and I see this 70-year-old guy walk by me, and he is absolutely jacked. Fit, looks maybe he could be 25. And I think this is going to be the most ripped 70-year-old I ever see in my life. But I was wrong, because then comes another 70-year-old who's just as jacked as the first one, and then an old lady, and there's a marathon of old people who all just look better than I've ever looked in my life. And I was absolutely taken aback, because I'm 18, and from ages 18 to 25, I should be in my physical prime. There's no reason why a 70-year-old should be outdoing me. And as I get back from the beach, I'm taking off my towel, I'm kind of sandy and sunburned, and my friend takes a very unflattering photograph of me. My first instinct is to start beating him up. I have him in a chokehold, I'm prying the phone out of his hands, but then I realized that this picture can be used as a tool because it embodies 3 of my greatest fears. First of all, my fear of embarrassment. Obviously no one likes to be embarrassed, but I have a genuine fear of embarrassment. I will avoid social interactions. I will avoid anything that could possibly lead to me being embarrassed. And as a result, I've missed out on making friends that I wish I could have made, or being a part of clubs and things like that I wish I could have been a part of. And of course that ties back to the picture because it's embarrassing. Next is my fear of change. I moved here from the city in Brewster in 9th grade, and there was so much change, and really I was very stagnant to it. I refused to change, and change has always been very intimidating to me, so I'd rather just not do it at all. And as a result, again, I missed out on a lot of things that I wish I didn't miss out on. Change leads to this because I have to make a change in lifestyle to look the way I want to look. And lastly, my biggest fear, commitment. If I were to pull out my transcript in front of you all, you would see some quarters in which I achieved 100 GPA and some in which I couldn't even crack 80. Because this idea of being a super committed, excellent student was so intimidating to me that oftentimes I'd rather close it out altogether and have to face it. And as a result, my performance has been very inconsistent. This ties into my personal life. I suck at keeping friendships, at keeping relationships, just because the idea of being the perfect friend or the perfect boyfriend is so intimidating to me that I'd rather close it out altogether. And of course, commitment, because it takes commitment to reach this. So I decided I would use this as a tool. And I gave my friends my Instagram login, password, everything. And I gave both of my friends a copy of the photograph in case one of them chickened out. And I said that if I can't reach my goal by my first semester of college, I want you to post this picture, tag everyone from my school, as many people as you can find, and I want you to publicly embarrass me if I can't reach my goal. And I don't know if this makes them great friends or horrible friends, but they agreed to do it. So with this looming over my head, let me tell you, I've never been as productive as I have been over these last 2-3 months. I've lost 12 pounds so far. My diet, my exercise has completely changed. And it's working. So you don't need to be a Marine. You don't need to be a world champion boxer. You don't need to be a CEO. You can apply these principles to your life today. Thank you.